this is pretty exciting. I just got my box from the Kompressor Haus in the UK with my Supercharger Kit for my Volkswagen bus. So we're going to see what we've got here. So the kit comes pre-tuned for your engine. I've got a stock dual port 1600, and yeah, it should have everything I need. But that's what they say, right? Cadbury Boost, a chocolate bar to go with the boosted engine. That's pretty classic. Thanks, guys. It's really melted though. All right, as if I didn't have anything else to do, this is what I'm doing this week. Afternoon. I am here in my barn. I moved my Studebaker up to the house and moved my 67 Volkswagen bus down here to the barn. Got everything ready to go. The compressor is in here. And all the parts that go with it. But I've got to do a few things first. Since this is a stock 1600 with a mechanical fuel pump, I've got to put in an electronic fuel pump. So I've got to get that wired in with a controller as well. So it's got a fuel power shut off in case of an accident or something. I've also got to install some breathers because there's going to be way more pressure in the case with the supercharger. Even though it's not providing a huge amount of boost, it's enough that there's going to be a lot of blow by otherwise. So I'm going to install an oil breather kit as well before I install it. But first off, I've got to strip down the engine. So I've cleaned out the engine bay, and I'm going to start taking off the tin and slowly dismantling the rest of the engine: carburetor, intakes, distributor, fuel pump, etc. And so it's stripped down and ready to take the new oil breather kit and electric fuel pump. All right, we're back at it. It was not as simple, of course, as it should have been. I got the carburetor off, and in order to get the center part of the intake manifold that takes the carburetor, I had to pretty much remove the alternator to slide that intake manifold pipe out of that center area. So quite a bit of surgery there, but I'm getting the fan housing back together. I'm going to put the alternator back on and go from there. Otherwise, we're pretty much ready to go to install the fuel pump and the oil breather, and then we'll start working on putting the engine back together. Where we're at right now, I got things stripped down. Got the new pulleys on. Intake is gone. Fuel pump gone. Blockouts on. Oil breather mounted back here. And I'm gonna mount the new electric fuel pump back there under the fuel tank. I'm not real fast at this, that's for sure, but I've always wanted to do things like this. I've always loved tinkering with my cars, and one of the biggest issues I've always had is time and lack of time to allow me to really dig in and do major things. So usually just minor stuff, but I've been enjoying doing this to a certain degree. The thing I'm really bad at is electrical. I'm so bad. And so I went up and watched a bunch of videos and read my Volkswagen book and sort of wrapped my head around the electrical. And that's kind of what was stooping me. I ended up placing the electric fuel pump back here, the regulator controller up there, running the wires where they're supposed to go, and now I'm gonna dig into the breathers. I mounted the breather box back in that corner of the firewall, and yeah, go from there, slowly but surely. But I'm having fun. Here's my mess. The old pulleys. I didn't film trying to get the old pulley off. But that crank pulley nut was really tight, and I didn't have a pulley puller, so I did it very carefully, just rocking it side to side to side to side to side, and you know, without prying too much pressure on the case, because you certainly don't want to crack your case or damage your case. But got it off, got the new stuff on, tensioner, crank pulley, alternator pulley, and yeah, we're getting there. All right, we're back at it again. Another trip to the hardware store for more supplies, proper electric stuff, and I needed a 5/8 bit to drill in order to put the oil breather nipples into the valve covers. So working away, buying lots of tools that I needed that I should have had anyway for all of these projects. But we're getting there. We've got, yeah, the engine bay cleaned up, getting the electrical sorted out. A lot of the electrical stuff that was done previously from whoever owned this long before I bought it. Yeah, just trying to clean things up and make all the connections really good, get the grounds really sorted out, putting them on more solid so things aren't coming undone. And I'm going to put some inline fuses onto some of the positives just in case. And yeah, having fun. She's getting there. This is my shop. Keep the big truck in here along with most of the tools and stuff. Some are up in the lower garage where I keep the older cars when they aren't being worked on. But yeah, you find out every time you work on something you don't have what you thought you had. But these have got some big wrenches now. Had to get that to pull off the crank pulley nut. Anyway, off we go. All right, got my breathers in, valve covers. Put on new gaskets while I'm at it. And wiring is all tidied up. I'm working on the positives now put an inline fuse to the new electric fuel pump, and now I'm going to clean these up and tie the wires together so that they're not a spaghetti mess. But we're getting there. That's pretty much the rest of the sort of pre-prep stuff that needs to get done to put on the supercharger kit. So now I can start working on plumbing the intake. All right, taking a lunch break. I have some advice for all you judgmental people out there. If you ever complain how much you're getting charged when somebody works on your car and you think you're being charged too much, like for something that you think sounds super simple, or if you think about complaining, don't. Because it's taking me so long to do the simplest things. And it's not just because I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing. Like even the things where I kind of know what I'm doing, this just takes a long time. So give people a break. If your mechanic charges you $250 for something that you think should take 15 minutes, do it yourself and find out how long it actually takes. And if you're good at that kind of stuff yourself, you kind of know what I'm talking about already. So give the working man a break. He deserves it. So just an update where I'm at. I've got the supercharger loosely on here. It's not bolted down. I do have a couple of issues. One, I would say if you're even considering doing this, drop your motor and do the build with it out of the car. I'm at the point of no return, so I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but it would be way quicker to strip things down and cleaner and faster to put things together properly, doing it out of the car and then just put it back in when you finish. Couple of points. Supercharger clearance, I am maxed out here. I've got basically zero tolerance, and we'll see as I bolt things up. I may need to put a jack on the ground and give myself a couple millimeters of clearance up here by bending that up. We will see. I also had a coil clearance issue. I'm going to have to move my coil up because it is hitting the boost tube. I've got this side on to the intake. I'm going to do the other side now, but yeah, it's coming together. Certainly not fast. It would, again, be way quicker. Just pull the engine, do it out of the car next time. Good morning. I keep running out of battery, so we've missed a few steps, but I'm so slow in between, you know, really meticulous, taking my time and searching around for nuts and bolts and whatnot. So I don't want to film the whole thing, even in time lapse, because this is taking a long time. But anyway, we're getting there. Got the supercharger in, got the pulley on, alignment seems pretty good. I'm going to recheck that now. Wiring is all good. Everything is fitted. It seems to have made it. It is absolutely maxed out. I am on the top, but was able to get this tightened down as needed and torqued up pretty good. Tensioner seems good. So yeah, start plumbing the fuel lines. Gonna mount the carburetor next. I am probably gonna have to cut the top of that bolt for the attachment to the positive lead to the alternator. They recommend using an alternator with the positive terminal back here, but I just put this in. It's the last thing I did on the bus, and it's a huge pain in the ass again if you don't take the engine out. And so I'm going to cut this, shorten it, and I think I'll have enough clearance if I cut this post just enough to be able to get that on and keep it from interfering with the carburetor mount. So let you know. All right, update where we're at. Got the manifold and carburetor set up, but I've got some clearance issues. As you can see, I was pushing up the cross brace to the top of the engine bay to give myself a couple millimeters more clearance, which worked using the floor jack. Again, would have been a better way to do it with the engine not in here, and then you never know until you know, though. But now I've got a clearance issue with my alternator. I cut down the post for the alternator as short as I could get it right here for that clearance, and I'm clear there now. But unfortunately, this large 60 amp alternator, I've got some clearance issues right here on this flange, and so I have a bit of excess, as you can see right here. I don't need all of that material, and I only need, a millimeter. A couple of millimeters would be great. So I'm gonna take this down, take this apart, grind that down so that fits without hitting the alternator. All right, I filed down that mount position. You can see this is where it was binding on the alternator. So you can see this side is round and this side is now flattened off, and that gives me enough clearance, and I'm no longer hitting on top. I flattened that out just enough to give me clearance, so it looks like this is ready to go on. So getting there. All right, supercharger and carburetor are in. Again, pretty tough doing it in the engine bay, but especially tightening that mounting bolt back there to the supercharger. Pretty hard to get to. Ended up using a universal. Once I got it in there, getting it in there, this was the only way. So you gotta have one of these. It's also really good if you drop a screw or a washer or a nut somewhere to magnetically get it out of there. So I just fed the screw in like that and slowly turned it in place with the magnet, and she's in. So I've got clearance on top, I've got clearance here. I cleared the alternator positive lead, and cut down gave me about 2 millimeters in there. So at least from a clearance standpoint, we're pretty good. Gotta plumb the fuel lines, put the ignition back together, and go from there. Okay, home stretch. I'll show you where we're at. We've got everything plumbed and pretty much ready to go. Throttle cables are now in. Carb is done. Fuel system in. Hopefully leak proof. We will see when we fire it up for the first time. Coil moved, and just going to change out the distributor clamp, and then we're pretty much there. All right, so I finally got the distributor on and working. Actually turned it over, and it turned over, but then there was a strange squealing sound. I couldn't figure out what it was, and if you look at the back of the pulley, you can see I was grinding down the back of the pulley because this sheet metal was actually just a little out of position, and it was grinding right here on the back of the pulley. And so I have banged that back into position where it's supposed to be, because this pulley is a little fatter than the original pulley. And I'm going to put that back on and start her up again. Got the pulley back on. Doesn't look like it's hitting the sheet metal anymore. Belt seems about right. I'll tighten it up more later, but see how it goes and try and turn it over. It runs. As you can hear, I've got a little exhaust leak. I might try and attack that. It's right here, so easy to get to while I've got the sheet metal off. It's running. I'll get the timing light and do the timing. It doesn't look like I've got any fuel leaks. That's the main thing, because I've re-plumbed everything. I want to make sure there's no leak in fuel anywhere here. That is critically important. So far, so good. Got it all buttoned up. Got the exhaust leak fixed. Doesn't look like there's any fuel leaks. Set the timing. Seems to be running okay. Test drive. So it runs, but it's got some serious adjustments that I've got to do. Throttle is sticking, so I don't know if it's the wiring, the geometry of this that's sticky. I don't think so. I think it's between the pedals and here are just not returning properly. There's too much tension there for some reason. So hanging throttle, which is never a good thing. All right, we are pretty much on the home stretch. I'm buttoning up the final sheet metal on the engine compartment. My last bolt to get this guy secured on here, and hope that my deck lid is still shutting and fitting properly. I had an issue yesterday with the throttle cable being a little sticky. I think part of it is the geometry here. I've got a straight run. You have to be really careful with this connector to make sure it's running straight and there's no kinks in it or no hang-ups, but it's still not the greatest angle if you look at how it's pulling on the throttle body level. You know, it'd be nice if it were that angle so it was cleaner. It's really pulling at a really tight angle to the hinge point here, and so I've doubled up the spring, the return spring, because it was just not wanting to come back, and now it seems to be returning really well, and we'll go for a drive and see what it feels like. Kick on the fuel pump. Really smart to be driving with really greasy hands in a white interior. without cleaning them first. I got some cleaning up to do anyway. It's like literally double as fast. That's crazy. Okay, so that was the initial drive around the block. So first impression is the torque difference is amazing, which will really help the drivability. I mean, this is an amazing car. It's super fun to drive, but it is anemic. It is so slow and so gutless. And that's going to make it much, much more drivable. It's honestly quick, and you know, not by modern car standards, but for 1600 stock, it's now quite quick. So I'm stoked. It made it around the block. I'm going to go check and make sure it's not squirting fuel everywhere. But that was the first underload kind of drive around, and first impression is, yeah, I think Kompressor Haus is doing some pretty cool stuff. And if I installed it myself, anybody can install it. All right, well, you know, we at least got warmed up. It's not spewing fuel everywhere. It's not squirting oil everywhere. All my breather hoses stayed connected, because I've seen some stuff online that you can drive it, punch it once or twice, and all the lines blow off. But maybe that's people that don't know how to tighten hose clamps. So right now, everything's looking good, drives good, sounds good, and seems to be holding together. So not bad. So that's a wrap on the Kompressor Haus Ultimate Supercharger Kit. I ordered not the sleeper kit, but the Ultimate Kit with the Weber. I figured if I'm going to do it, let's do it all the way. I also ordered the kit with everything. So with the fuel pump, with the breather kit, with the tuning, where they tuned the carburetor in advance to my engine spec. And for someone like me, that made a big difference. Having every hose clamp, every nut and bolt, everything kind of in the box ready to go, so it limited the amount of times I needed to go to the auto parts store and the hardware store. Really helped. They did a great job of putting the thing together in terms of fit and finish. Everything went in the way it was supposed to. The clearance issues that I had, that was my fault. You know, I probably should have measured things out, fit, banged out, maybe cut myself a port. But that, you know, you learn in hindsight. At the end of the day, I'd say it's an awesome kit for somebody like me that wants to wrench on the car, that doesn't have a lot of knowledge and know-how, enough to get my way around. This was awesome. I just wanted to spend some time working on the car myself. Came out with a great result. It's way quicker. It's making, I guess, around 8 PSI a boost, and that is plenty. You know, it went from being completely gutless to being able to really easily get out of its own way. I'm not going to race it. I'm not trying to, you know, beat anybody, but it's much more drivable now. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It was good fun. Took me a while, but if I did it again, it'd take me about a third of the amount of time now. So yeah, pretty stoked.